Holy cow, what a miracle! What is your greatest miracle? Well, this next segment, they're going to share with you their greatest miracle. You won't want to miss it on Generational Wealth, the next generation for people of color. Stay tuned. I'm so glad you guys are here. So we're here with Ruddy Ortiz and his mom, Maria. We're going to get right into it. The segment of Generational Wealth, the next generation for people of color. Tell me, who are you and what do you do? We'll start with you, Maria.
Well, I'm actually a retired nurse at this point. Did my nursing for 42 years.
Okay.
And then I actually came into the financial services business. Actually, with my son, he brought me in.
Okay.
My daughter's also in the financial services with us. And what I love about this is that, you know, financially, in my prior life as a nurse, I really couldn't help a lot of my patients financially. Once they were devastated, you know, it was kind of hard to be able to, you know, give them resources where they could financially help themselves. And then when I came into this business, I realized, oh my God, you know, if they would have had this in place before the catastrophe financially came, they would have been able to, you know, handle it a lot better than, you know, than they did at the time.
Sure.
And I say, you know, if they would have been proactive, then a lot of, you know,
absolutely
issues would have been
alleviated.
Yes. And, you know, one of the stresses in the medical field and that causes more illness is actually stress from finances.
Absolutely.
So
many
I thought
people
this
are struggling.
was, right, so I thought this was actually a good, you know, segue for me to leave that part and come into this part.
That's wonderful. Ruddy, who are you? And what do you do, sir?
So I'm a son, obviously.
Yes.
I'm also a father and a husband.
Okay.
A small business consultant. I've been helping small businesses do marketing probably for the last 14, 15 years. And I'm an entrepreneur. I love people. I love helping people find their maximum, their God seed in them, and help them flourish that to what it could ultimately possibly be. And so I get a huge thrill for helping people discover that and be on the journey, and it's been a lot of fun for the last 20 years for me.
Wow. So tell me about the start of your entrepreneurial journey. When did that start for you?
You know what? Great question, Tracy. It actually started for me consciously, that I can remember, when I was in my early 20s, and I got laid off, fired, and downsized from 3 different jobs within 18 months.
Wow.
And it was at a time in my life where I was really focused on getting ahead financially because I had serious goals. I had met a serious girl, you know, and we say in our office, there's no romance without finance.
Right, there you go.
And so I knew that she didn't want to be with a broke guy.
Right.
So I needed to make some money, and but it was a struggle trying to work for somebody else. And so I ended up kind of stumbling on some stuff online with regards to technology. I took a degree in Microsoft Certified Systems Engineering that I can do online. Through that, I had to take a basics course in web development, and I actually fell in love with that because it appealed more to the creative side that I did not know I had. And so I switched my course curriculum to web design. Through web design, I ended up really kind of smacking right into direct response marketing online, and I was hooked. I mean,
really?
Yeah, I was learning a lot about marketing and sales and psychology, and that was a whole new world and a whole new adventure that just really resonated with my soul, and I seen a big potential to add a great deal of value to the world through it. And so I just dove head in, and you know, it's been an amazing journey for me since then.
So I think we titled this segment, My Greatest Miracle. Tell me what your greatest miracle was. That one of them?
I can certainly say that was one of them. There's been a few, I'd say. You know, one of them is my relationship with my mom is a great miracle to me.
Yeah.
One, because I wasn't the best son
No,
growing
really?
up. No, not at all.
Can't wait to hear about that, Mom.
Yeah, I'll let her tell her story.
Unfortunately.
But with that said, you know, another really amazing miracle was to watch her evolve as a mom, as a provider for a family. I lost my dad when I was 12 years old, and my dad was my best friend, and so that just turned my world upside down. She was put in a position now where she had to be both mom and dad and a double provider. I mean, literally her main income source was gone. She was left with me, my little brother, and 3 months pregnant with my little sister.
Wow.
And so I had to watch her, being the oldest son, I'd watched her struggle, you know, to provide for us and do what she had to do.
Sure.
She did it without complaining. I can't even tell you one time I heard my mom complain. I can't remember those days. If there were, she didn't do it in front of me.
Yeah.
She always had a smile on her face. She always had God in front of her. And she always was a praying mom. And, you know, she literally just showed me how to battle through things when you're going through it in life. And I didn't appreciate that at that time because I was going through my own struggles and my own problems, you know, losing my dad, finding my identity. Ended up making a lot of stupid choices with the environment that I chose to put myself in and the people that I chose to hang around with. And so, and even through that, she was tough, but she was loving. She held her standards. She didn't really compromise her standards, but she still had open arms for me and was very forgiving. And I mean, just amazing lessons that I learned from her that now as a father, I can completely appreciate and I understand, you know. And so one of the things that I know that she did a lot for me was pray a lot for me because of my knuckleheadedness. Yeah. And I know that today, you know, that I'm a result of those prayers. And so that's why I say that there's a lot of miracles in our own relationship where, I mean, it's always been good, although, you know, there was a couple of times she had to smack me upside the head.
With a frying pan.
Yeah.
Almost.
I think I can say that now, you know. Well, if she did that now, she'd probably go to jail, but yeah.
We'll keep that a secret.
Yeah, we can edit that out, right? But anyway, but yeah, just seeing the way that she dealt with me, dealt with my siblings, dealt with her situation, you know, is one of the greatest lessons I've learned. One of the biggest miracles that I've ever seen in my life is her. And that's why, you know, I've never been short on words of saying my mom's my greatest hero in my life. I mean, and it's not because she's my mom.
Sure.
It's because of the woman that she is, and I seen her the way that she was, you know. So, yeah, I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, that's beautiful. Maria.
Thank you, Rudy.
You'll pay him later.
I must say I wasn't always that graceful. But, yeah, going back to, you know, Rudy's childhood, unfortunately, he did lose his dad at 12, and, you know, he's going through teenage, you know, that part in life where you really need your dad. So he got into a lot of trouble. You know, he was a gangbanger at one point. You know, he gave me a lot of grief. And, you know, as he said, his dad died. I was actually 1.5 months pregnant with my daughter. And I had him, and I had a 5-year-old at the time. So, and you know, financially, we were devastated. We had a house, we had 2 cars, we were living the American dream, like you say. You know, the white picket fence in the city. But you know, when his dad died, then more than half of my income, you know, went down. They were in private schools. You know, like I said, we were living the American dream. And then all of a sudden, that's why now I appreciate the fact that we show people how to avoid those situations.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, if part of what we show people now were in place at that time for me,
Yes.
I wouldn't have had to go through all the turmoil financially, emotionally, all the things that we went through at that, time in our life. And as he said, I had to deal with it, as gracefully as I could. I praise God. I thank God, because I am a woman of faith.
Yes.
That He was there through it all. I always try not to have my kids involved in the bad part of it. I try to make it as best for them as I could within the circumstances I was in. But I was always, as he said, I prayed him through his situations, through his going through his knuckleheadedness, like he said.
Yes.
And thank God, that he did make mistakes. And, he did go through a lot of stuff that he himself put himself through. My second son, unfortunately, also kind of went a bad path.
Yeah.
And at 18, he was, he was shot and killed.
Oh, my.
Yeah, through, circumstances also that he chose. And, God took me through that. So, and then, with my daughter, her being the last child, I tried to make life as best as I could for them, for her too.
And I know I can see why you're their hero. I can really see that and understand that.
Yeah.
Bless your heart.
And, all glory be to God, because I think if it wouldn't have been for him and my church, my church family, it would have been a whole lot more difficult.
Story.
And the ending might not be the ending we have right now.
So speaking of the endings to a great beginning, how did you get to the point you are now? You are an entrepreneur. So what can you say to the viewing audience that see who you are now? How can they get to where you are? And they may be struggling now, going through some things that that you've gone through as a young person, and they see and they say, well, I'm going through that now. How can your viewing audience have hope to come out of it, to be successful? That's the question.
Great question, Tracy, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'd say there's three things that I look back in my life, apart from having a praying mom.
Yes.
Three other things that I can attest to that have gotten me to where I'm at today. One is I made a conscious decision to change my environment. I think that you are a product of your environment, and it's not just a physical environment, but more importantly, a mental environment.
Yes.
I believe that a lot of people do not take responsibility for their mental life, for their spiritual life, and they're kind of tossed to and fro in life based on circumstances, and they kind of just respond or react to circumstances, but they don't make a conscious decision to decide, this is who I want to be, this is who I'm going to be, and I'm committed to making that happen in my life. When I made that choice, all of a sudden, it was as God just put the right people in my path. And that started creating an amazing environment for me where people would speak truth and love to me. They would also challenge me, and they created higher standards for me that I was not accustomed to. So one of those was learning to feed my mind on a daily basis. So, before my 20s, you wouldn't catch me reading a newspaper. I mean, I just hated reading. I never finished high school. I never went to college. And so I was very undisciplined, very lazy when I was in my teenage years. But when I got into that environment, I learned the power and the benefit of being an avid reader.
Yes.
And so I started feeding my mind with books on principles, on leadership, on sales, on marketing. And that expanded my horizons. It also gave me a lot of confidence. It allowed me to change my vernacular. A lot of people say, you're an amazing speaker, Rudy. Did you ever go to school for that? I said, no, I just read a lot.
Yes.
And through reading, I learned how to speak. And so those were two things. And then the meetings that I attended, I started placing myself in events where I was surrounded by big thinkers, by visionary people.
Yes.
And I started trying to figure out how can I get closer to them, right? I think one of your speakers earlier, Linnell, he mentioned the power of mentorship.
Yes.
And I completely 100% agree with that. You are a byproduct of who you decide to emulate and associate.
Yes.
And so those were the things that I did. And it's amazing because when I made those choices, my life started to radically start moving in the right direction. It didn't take a long time for me to start climbing up socially, financially, from a spiritual place, from a place of impact in my community. I mean, it happened very, very, very quickly for me. And, you know, I'm very grateful for that because most people, they look at me and they're like, they would think that I'm some big guy. I don't even have a high school diploma.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So speaking of that, when people say I've got to go back to school to get my bachelor's or master's or PhD, what does Matt call it? Public high school diploma. What would you say to that? Because I know I fell into that, and I did. I have my EDS, and I'm grateful for that.
Sure.
However, I've found, as you have stated, the importance of surrounding yourself with great mentors, those that are going places. So can you please speak to that in terms of education and how to balance the two?
Absolutely. Well, let me say this. I certainly believe that education is important, right? Now, what I feel, though, too, is that the way that education is obtained in America has become more of a business in and of itself, right? So the truth is, and remember, I didn't go to college, so I can't speak from a place of experience, but I'm also very observant. And what I've come to realize, Tracy, is that college is great if you're going to specialize in certain things. If you're going to be a surgeon, ophthalmologist, those type of specialized skills. I certainly don't want a surgeon if I needed a brain surgery that didn't go to college to work on me, right?
Sure.
But if you're going to do some general stuff, I think that you can find other environments and other information and access to other people that could be more cost efficient.
Yes.
And that can save you a lot of time too, because I think a lot of kids too, when they go to school, they're still trying to figure out who they want to be.
Yeah.
And they're spending all this time and money. Well, that's a very expensive lesson. There's other ways that you can do that can be a little bit more cost effective and a little bit more life effective as well for them. So I'm certainly a believer in education. I just don't necessarily believe in the formal education system that we have today.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
Sure.
Some will take that to heart for those that are viewing that. Last question for you. There have been a lot of parents that have taken advantage of their children's Social Security numbers. And there are so many people that are undocumented with no Social Security numbers. Can you speak to either one of those issues when, number one, if people are struggling financially and they misuse a child's social for their benefits, and number two, for people that do not have an I-10 or a social, how can they advance financially in either one of those situations? Can you speak to that, either one of you?
Well, I am a Hispanic. The only thing is that, we're from Puerto Rico, so we are documented.
Okay.
We're born citizens. But I do have, a lot of Latino from, friends who come from other countries. And I have known of people that have done that. They've either used their kid's Social Security or someone else's Social Security. Not in a personal way that I can say I know who they are, but I've known stories of people told me, you know what, somebody used my Social Security, and you kind of know it was, somebody probably from who didn't have a Social Security number. Per se, I would think, I haven't been in that situation, so I really don't want to say if I would have done it, I wouldn't have done it. But I do know that, unfortunately, some people do it because they want to seek the opportunity to, have a job, work, and they need to have a livelihood. The unfortunate part about it is that, it is illegal to do that. And, there is, penalties for people who are caught doing that kind of thing. On a personal basis, I can say, since we don't really need to do that, I really wouldn't be able to kind of say how that would affect me in a personal sense. But I would understand, I can see how people would actually do that, because they want the opportunity to, go up financially, have a job, or, have some kind of livelihood in this country. So I think that's basically all I could probably say on that respect.
Okay. Rudy, have anything to add on that?
One of the things that I really appreciate about this country is that anybody can come here and do something amazing with their life.
Yes.
I really believe that is the American dream. That entrepreneurship, by the way, is the absolute 100% core foundation of that dream.
Yes.
And some people, I can appreciate the fact that they have that whatever it takes attitude, and that they'll do whatever it takes to be able to fulfill that American dream. I think that in the spirit of this country, things need to take place that would allow people a more streamlined process for them to be able to make those things happen. There's different people that say different things about that, and some people are trying to put more blockades, some people are trying to open up the doors.
Sure.
Regardless of which path we take, I'm confident and I'm hoping that spirit of that American dream isn't diminished.
Yes.
And I really believe that people that come from other countries add an amazing energy and vibrancy to that dream, to that process.
Yes.
And so I can, like my mom said, I can understand why a person does it. If I were them, I'd probably do the same. I mean,
whatever it takes.
Yeah, whatever it takes attitude, because I think that spirit is what is required, regardless of where you're at, to win. Yes. Right now, obviously, you want to do things in a legal manner, but I'm going to fight for my dream till the day I die.
Yes, yes. So. And what is that dream, Ruddy Ortiz?
For me, it's to leave a legacy. I want to be a good steward over my family's last name. I want to be a good steward over the price that my parents paid for me to have this opportunity.
Yes.
I want to be a good steward over the belief and the confidence that my mentors have placed on me. And I want to make sure that 100 years from now that what we've done is still opening doors for other people like me.
Yes.
Because I know there's millions of people like me out there that grew up without a father, that are lost without hope, that have no direction, that have a mom that's struggling, and they just need somebody to be kind of ahead of the path that they can finally run into and say,
trailblazer.
Yeah, there's my path. That's what I need to do. And so if I can do that for even one person, then I've fulfilled my dream.
Even a mentor.
Yes.
Somebody they can emulate, like Larnell said. Somebody they can emulate, somebody that can be a role model for them, somebody who they know is going to take them where they need to go, and is a person of integrity. I think that's very important.
Wow. Well, thank you, Ruddy Ortiz, Maria Ortiz. Thank you. This has been a pleasure speaking with you today.
It's been my honor.
Thank you again.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk to you soon.